So, hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, part of our ongoing series hosted by the Bromford Flagship Strategy team, all about place-based working. If you've missed any of the previous sessions, you can catch them up on our Bromford Lab YouTube page, kind of building a library of insights and learning there from across the organization. So do go and check those out. Today, we're focusing on the Staple Hill pilot and its transition from or to a place-based way of working. First things first, let's introduce ourselves. So perhaps if I start with you, Angela, kind of what's your kind of relationship to place-based working and kind of how do you fit into the picture?
Hi, everybody. My name is Angela Manson, and I'm the place team lead for the team in Staple Hill. So, we are a team of 15 colleagues from across the business. We have 4 neighbourhood coaches, we have repair engineers, cleaners, caretakers, planner, who's obviously on the call today. So, my job is to lead and coordinate the team in Staple Hill. We work very much as a team together, so we decide what our priorities are, where we want to give our attention, what our customers are asking us for. And that's very much a joint effort with all of the team.
Yes, hello. I am Laura Rogers, so I am the planner for Staple Hill Place. Plan the diary of our repairs engineers that are involved in our place team and also act as a link really into the office side of things for the colleagues that are on the ground. So any information that they need around repairs or anything that I can find on our systems, I am kind of a quick way for them to be able to find that information.
So, Leo Adzi, I'm head of project delivery, Bromford Flagship in the technology team. So, my role in sort of the defining place is sort of working with Mark and John and Paul in the strategy team to help define the concept of it and really sort of, get buy-in and engagement and sort of shape the direction of the concept within the wider business and organize and support the pilots. So obviously we're up to 3 pilots now. Staple Hill was number 1. We have a second pilot in Lichfield up in Staffordshire and a third pilot in Morton-le-Marsh and so on the Wold in the Cotswolds. So we were sort of the team charged with sort of defining and helping the team grow and push the pilots forward.
So obviously today we're focusing on the first of those pilots, and it's the 1-year anniversary, more or less anyway, of bringing that team together. So today we're going to be exploring kind of all about how it's gone, lessons learned, and kind of maybe looking a little bit to the future as well about what the vision could be based on what we've learned. So I'll kick off with my first question, which is for you, Angela. So as you say, we've kind of brought colleagues together from various different functions around the business into a single team under a single place lead, yourself. So traditionally, these kind of team members, they'd report upwards through their own kind of professional silos. So the neighbourhood coaches through the kind of customer directorate, repairs colleagues through service delivery, etc. How did you manage the potential between kind of conflicting loyalties between kind of the new place team and their responsibilities to the place, as well as kind of those old functional silos?
So you're absolutely right, Mark, that those colleagues still have their traditional line managers. So I don't line manage them. I think the key is communication, two-way communication between myself and those line managers. So throughout the last 12 months, I've regularly met with the other line managers, updated them on where we are with place. I also send updates out. Those line managers understandably have their own goals and KPIs, and I see the place team as a support to that. So we're supporting them to help achieve their goals and KPIs. So, for example, we've halved the number of open complaints in Staple Hill within the last 6 months. Our repair service has dramatically improved. So we're helping towards those goals.
That's great. And can I ask, was that straightforward from the get-go? Has that kind of relationship between you as the place lead and the other kind of team leads, has that kind of developed over time, or was it smooth sailing?
No, it's not been smooth sailing. I think there have been some challenges there. As you say, we were the first pilot to go live, so we were new. And I think it was a case of everybody finding their feet and what responsibility sat with who. And I think there's still some work to do in that area. But as I said, I think the key is the two-way communication between colleagues and keeping each other updated and ironing out those little bumps in the road.
Sure. And Leo, perhaps if I could bring you in here. So from your perspective, because I know that you've been involved there's a kind of a Teams chat where the team communicate all with each other, which you're a part of. From your perspective, how do you see that kind of that relationship between the team and kind of external partners? How has that changed over the last 12 months from your perspective?
Yeah, when we were doing our discovery to understand what the composition and the ways of working for the team should be, a sort of common refrain we heard from colleagues were they sometimes didn't know where to go to solve a problem. We heard that, it wasn't in one area, it was across multiple teams, multiple colleagues, sort of with that sort of common challenge. So where we really saw, early value and where we thought, okay, this way of working has a chance of really working was on that Teams chat where we saw, over time, we saw more and more colleagues in different teams. Sort of, if a colleague said, "Oh, I need help with something," it wasn't just in their skill set or in their particular team where the help would come from. It would be from a cleaner or a caretaker or, the person who was responsible for refurbishing homes after a customer had left it, and help was coming from multiple directions. Whereas previously, that colleague may have didn't know may have known where to go or what the answer was. And what was really good to see is that assistance would often come really, really quickly. Sometimes it was a case of I'm going to visit a customer, but I need I know that they've had this issue before. Is anybody around to accompany with me? And someone would put their hand up proactively. And I think that wasn't happening as much previously. So, yeah, we could almost see it in real time, those relationships internally sort of building with colleagues who previously may or not have, liaised with each other that much. So, yeah, that's when we knew we were onto a winner. And I think one of the biggest elements of having Angela here is having a colleague with the time to build external relationships as well with local charities, with customers, with South Gloss Council, really key partners in sort of building a community within Staple Hill and having a sort of point person, for all of those relationships to flow through. I think definitely over time, and Angela know better than me, really seeing those blossom as well. And we've got customers and third parties coming to us proactively, come to Angela proactively to work within the community, which is something which I think we didn't do as much as we could have before, and it is really good to see that really evolving.
Absolutely, and we'll be coming back to kind of third party and external stakeholders in a later question. But I just wanted to build on that kind of, or I suppose probe a little bit deeper, Angela, on kind of in terms of trying to build that new sense of a team, which is sort of centered around the place rather than around kind of your skill set and expertise. What particular kind of routines or tools we've spoken about kind of just having one big group chat where everyone can communicate together. What kind of other tools or routines have you used to kind of reinforce that sense of kind of a new identity or a new team?
I think I've been very lucky with my team as well, that they were really excited about what we were about to embark on. So they've all been really enthusiastic. I think it's getting to know each other has been crucial. They possibly didn't understand, and me personally, I didn't really understand Laura's role, the role of the planner and what that entailed. Same with some of the other colleagues. I'd never worked directly with cleaners and caretakers before. So I think a key element of that was us all getting to understand each other's roles, what that entails, what the challenges were, the frustrations, etc. We go out for a coffee regularly where we just go away from Staple Hill and we sit and just have a natter. And it's spending the time to get to know each other as a team on one-to-one basis as well. And we've done a few community events now where the whole team have got in the spirit of it. Laura's dressed up as a carrot before for the Easter event. And that's really brought us together as well, because that's been fun, meeting with our customers and being a little bit silly, getting out in the community. And I think as well as the customer benefit, that's really brought the team together as well. And I think it's so simplistic, but the Microsoft Teams chat has just been such a success.
Yeah, that's great. It's great to hear. There should always be, that sense of personal responsibility to you actually want to help someone because you actually care about the outcomes for that person and the customer too. There should always be that shared sense of kind of responsibility too. And I just wanted to kind of move us on to thinking about some of the kind of the key achievements of the pilot. So, Angela, one of the the standout achievements of the pilot was being able to deliver without any kind of new resources. It was just bringing existing people within the Bromford flagship together, which suggests that, the team had to stop doing some things to make space to do some of the new things. Is that right? Or was it about unlocking capacity through kind of better systems and better communication?
No, we've absolutely not stopped doing anything. I think communication has been key, and that Teams channel, we keep referring back to it, that has really assisted colleagues in the team. They can get answers a lot quicker from each other, as opposed to going down a traditional route of trying to reach out to other teams. They now have that direct communication with each other. They can get responses quicker, which saves them time. They're not spending that time chasing. So that's given them a little bit more capacity. If we look at, for example, our caretaker and our engineer, so with our engineer, our repair service, we started off the pilot with 2 full-time engineers. We're now down to 1 full-time engineer, and he has now got capacity to do the proactive work, which is about window restrictors, but he's now got capacity to be proactive. He's just completed this week his Tetra course, which means he can now work at height. So we're upskilling our colleagues as well. So he's got the capacity now to do even more things. Our caretaker, he's gone on a weed spraying course, which will obviously help the grounds maintenance team and benefit the customers because we've got a tidier looking scheme. So we've absolutely got that spare capacity, but not across the entire team. There's still some work to do. We still have got to look at capacity of other colleagues and how we can support and improve ways of working to give them a little bit more time as well.
Absolutely. And kind of on that vein, I wanted to bring in Laura here. Obviously, as a member of the team, I wondered, have kind of you felt that effect of differences in kind of where your time or priorities are spent, or have you noticed it more in kind of other colleagues in the team?
I think from the role of a planner, not much changes from our perspective because we're still planning that diary and we're still looking at what is happening on a day to day. I think as a planner, we aren't solely planning for the place, so you're still planning for other areas. So from a capacity perspective, not much changes from that sense, but I've definitely seen how that has helped other colleagues within the team, but it definitely does benefit us as well from differences. So for example, it was only last week or the week before, we had a phone call come through to our customer services centre about a leak from a flat. The property was a attending pairs property and the customer was leaving in 10 minutes, so we really needed to get there ASAP. I was able to just use our Teams chat, which everybody has mentioned, to just ask if anybody could attend with the engineer, and we had 2 people there within 5 minutes, and we managed to get that leak sorted. So from a perspective, that repair could have been carded, it would have been delayed, obviously the leak could have worsened. So although it doesn't directly impact my capacity, it does help overall with having that constant communication from us, from an office perspective, to people that are there on the ground.
Absolutely. And then obviously at the end of that, you've got a customer who's got a repair so much quicker as well, which is obviously a fantastic outcome. So yeah, it's great. I think one thing that, from afar that I've observed from the pilot is that there are some roles that almost directly benefit from that kind of freed up capacity, and then almost other roles that kind of facilitate that. And it definitely feels like the planner is one of those facilitating roles where actually day to day, maybe your role hasn't changed hugely, but access to you and the knowledge of kind of looking into the future of jobs and stuff for other people is hugely beneficial.
Yeah, definitely. And I think being able to support with future repairs, if we're struggling to be able to book appointments, things like that, it does help to have that open communication with the NCs who can support with that quickly to make sure we can get the repair sorted for the customer.
Absolutely. That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Laura. Coming back to you, Angela, how would you reflect on kind of having the planner within the central team? That's obviously an embedded change into the kind of the function of the team. Has that had a material difference on, how decisions were made about the place or sequenced in that sense?
Yeah, having Laura on the team, a planner, has really been instrumental in the success of the place. Laura and I meet twice a week, and we go through the calendars, we go through capacity, we look at unappointed jobs, and also Laura runs the monthly reports for the engineers so that we can have a look at how we're performing. I think having that direct access to Laura has been invaluable for the team. You know, you touched on earlier, there are colleagues within the team who wouldn't necessarily have known how to raise repairs, etc. Now they can just come straight to Laura and say, I've just noticed this door is hanging off, for example. So that's encouraging those colleagues to get involved in it as well. It just makes it easier, a lot easier. So yeah, it's been a huge benefit.
That's great. And back to you, Laura. I just wonder if you could cast your mind back to when we started this pilot 12 months ago. You've said that perhaps kind of your day-to-day role hasn't changed overly much in that, you know, you're still planning jobs and you're still planning jobs elsewhere. Have you noticed, is there any kind of difference in how colleagues within the team, or perhaps even with your interactions with other planners in other parts of the business, has your relationship changed with them at all, the way that you communicate? Or
I think definitely with the place team, it's grown massively in how we communicate with each other. So obviously we communicate within the Teams chat, but will often reach out to me in order to get things quickly, give me a call and be able to lean on each other. And I think being in a completely different office, miles away from everybody, can sometimes feel like a barrier for that communication, but it hasn't been, as we've mentioned, with, you know, having our monthly coffees and things like that, being able to connect with each other and rely on each other for answers and updates, and kind of trust each other with things that we need to say. If we've got a sensitive case, for example, from one of the neighbourhood coaches, they will happily come to me directly and have that conversation with me outside of the chat. And I think that's definitely evolved as time's gone on, when we've built that trust a little bit more with each other. I think from other planners' perspective, from a diary, you don't just control that diary. So we work in teams of roughly 3 per patch. So it's really good to be able to educate other people on how place works, and the other planners have an understanding of what we're doing and why we're doing it, making sure that we only have place jobs on the engineer and things like that. So I think it's been just a shift in the whole team's way of looking at it, because we've adopted it. And obviously being part of the planning team, I've seen that in the other places that we have as well.
fantastic. Going to move us on and bring Leo in here. You kind of, I suppose the term is Agile Light. You've introduced this kind of Agile Light kind of way of working to a non-tech team. Can you run us through what that means, and kind of describe potentially, was there any kind of resistance into kind of bringing that concept into kind of a non-tech environment?
Yeah, so I mean, Agile Light is one way to look at it, but I think the main focus is embedding this idea, this concept of cross-functional working, because we knew that whatever the place model would evolve into, that sort of working across teams, that sort of working towards jointly held outcomes was going to be a central pillar in it. I think I did initially underestimate how quickly non-technical colleagues would actually understand that concept. I remember, in one of the first sort of workshops, I said, "Oh, we can use Kanban boards," and literally I just got blank faces sort of back at me. I was okay, maybe later then. But I think that sort of cross-functional element did take a bit of time for some colleagues to get to grips with, because our business is split into very clearly defined verticals, each with the responsibility to deliver against an individual team, sort of goals and objectives. So I think some colleagues took a bit of time, or found it a little bit difficult to visualize the benefit of sharing tasks in service of a cross-functional outcome, because it's very much, this is my team and this is what we have to do. But I think with any new change, the best way to sort of build engagement and build it into the culture is when people start to see sort of like those green shoots of progress, and when they start to see things sort of working. I knew from our discovery process that a number of the issues that teams were facing would be solved by having a consistent group of colleagues working in that local area, working in Stable Hill, building stronger relationships between themselves, but also with our customers as well. And a number of the challenges which we're hearing were due to breakdowns in communications between teams, or between steps in a process. So I think very early on, the colleagues in the place team could see the day-to-day benefits of working together, trying to solve problems together, instead of within a skill set or within a single team. But until some key metrics started to improve, like first time fix, and the amount of time to schedule an appointment dropped. Did people outside of the team, colleagues outside of the team, start to see, oh, this I can see this is working, because they could see those really key things starting to improve, and they start to gain confidence that what we were building over here, was something sort of worthwhile and something worth looking to get learnings from, and to emulate.
Would you say that was kind of the key turning point was kind of Proofire kind of metrics that people recognize?
Yeah, definitely, because it's that shared language across the business, as in, these are, really important things for the business to improve on. And where one of the reasons we selected Stable Hill as a pilot is historically, there were some challenges in some of those key metrics. So when we start to see things go up in a positive way or come down in a positive way, people are like, oh, okay, right, oh, there's something here. But it's not all about what you can measure. We saw, in the team chat, also talking to colleagues, that bond forming. I remember one of the colleagues said, "There's some colleagues here who I saw, but I didn't know they worked for Bromford." And then you saw that same colleague, liaising with other members in the team like daily, and that's, you can't measure that. That's not something you can see on a spreadsheet, but that was an indicator of success, combined with things you can measure, but also the feel aspects and the soft elements. Seeing those two things come together, really gives confidence that this was a model that was working.
If you could cast your mind back to kind of setting this up in kind of the planning process and managing the project of setting it up, is there anything that you can reflect on in that process where there was a key light bulb moment for people that kind of kicked it off, or something that you reflect on that we might have done better or introduced earlier?
I definitely think we were purposefully cautious in the number of colleagues we brought into the team when we were doing our early sort of scoping. Initially, at one point the team had like 30 colleagues. Like, that's too big. And I think we could probably have brought in more teams in the business into the core Stable Hill team a little bit earlier than we did, because we found that the more colleagues who were involved, and more colleagues who were getting to know the customers, getting to know the place, getting to know those colleagues, the quicker the benefits, and their ways of working really improved. So we could have been a bit bolder, I think, in the number of teams and skill sets we included from the off. But equally, we don't want to fill it up too early, and then it become disjointed or unmanageable. So yeah, I think with the future pilots, we definitely learned from that and included more colleagues and more skills and more teams, from the off. But yeah, that's the benefit of doing a pilot. You learn these things, you learn what works, learn what didn't, and yeah, it helps inform the future.
Absolutely. And I wonder if you had a reflection on that as well, Angela, from kind of running the team day to day, because it's pretty clear, kind of the examples that you've given already as a team, that when you're trying to solve problems that kind of squarely the responsibility sits within the team, it can be done very quickly. As Leo says there, that there's other teams that potentially could be feasibly within a place team, some roles that don't. Is there kind of a resistance or some kind of potential frustration about trying to solve issues that kind of some responsibility sits outside the team versus inside? How does that kind of work on a day-to-day basis?
I think Leo's right. The whole point of the pilot is we evolve and we look at what works and what doesn't work and what we're missing. And I think definitely there are teams that we would like to come into place, and hopefully that will happen in the future. But we wouldn't have guessed that until we'd started experiencing things and thinking, well, actually we could really do with one of these colleagues in the team. And the great thing about place is we can ask, we can say, okay, can we have a colleague from your team to come in? And I think that takes time for us to realize that. So maybe we will grow even bigger over the next 12 months. And likewise, it might be that some colleagues that are in the team, we think, okay, that's great. They could move to the core, away from the core team and be a contact for us. It's finding our feet and learning what works for us. We do have named contacts in other teams around, which is great. That's a huge benefit. We can go straight to them. But I think definitely we will hopefully be adding some extra teams into the place team.
Absolutely. And even thinking like almost a bit wider than that, my mind almost immediately goes to, if you're setting up your, teams on the ground, for want of a better word, if you're setting them up in a place-based way, are we certain that kind of the rest of the kind of almost more centralized teams, are they set up to actually deliver for place-based teams or not? I think that's kind of still, a very live question that needs to be answered as well, doesn't it? Yeah, so I'm coming towards the end of my questions. So please do pop any questions that you would like to ask any of the panelists in the chat, and I'll come to those very, very shortly. I'm just going to finish with one question. I'm going to open it up to the whole panel. I'll come to you first, Leo. But looking ahead, if we're trying to kind of scale this pilot and the learnings up to kind of more pilots or a wider expansion of it, pilots often benefit from this kind of halo effect, a kind of unique energy. Everybody's very G'd up for the kind of initial pilot, a handpicked team, special senior attention, etc., etc. So as you look to expand the pilot, what single element of the Staple Hill pilot success that you believe would be the most difficult to replicate across the organization?
I'd probably say it's keeping what I could say the magic of the team going, and the things which don't show up in a metric or KPI. As things scale, as businesses grow, obviously we're growing as an organization as well now. As Bromford flagship, things are increasingly managed by metrics. Part of the skill, I think, of managing anything is knowing what's best to be tracked by numbers and what's best tracked by intangibles. Things like a customer stopping a colleague in the car park for a 5-minute chat, because they have a relationship, they've built a relationship strong enough where the customer feels comfortable to do so. That can't be captured in a spreadsheet. But that's really vital to building relationships, which leads to improved customer satisfaction. So what I'd say is, even though it's difficult, to think to bear in mind as place scales to the 70 places, not only in Bromford's sort of geography, but also flagship's geography in the east, is that leaders and managers just shouldn't rely solely on numbers or reports to judge the success of this way of working. Go and speak to colleagues on the ground, speak to customers in that local area. Observe the soft benefits, like colleagues saying, I feel more supported in my job, or I don't feel as alone anymore. Because a community isn't something that can be measured solely with numbers. It can only be measured by, the feeling of the people within that community. And by focusing only on the measurables means that you miss sort of half of that picture, where you both have to really get a feel for the benefits that's having, both internally in the business, but also the customers in those places as well.
Thank you. And I'll come to you next, Laura. Any kind of reflections on what you think may be kind of difficult to replicate as we expand on the pilot?
Yeah, I think obviously with us in the Staple Hill team, we are quite a close team. I think being able to communicate so effectively and making sure that there is scheduled times in for us to connect, whether that be in the Teams chat, whether that be on our weekly calls that we have, or those scheduled in-person times, to be able to keep those relationships. Obviously, as it gets bigger, there's going to be different relationships and more relationships, but making sure that they are personal and connected, because you're all sharing the same goal and you can trust each other, which I think is the key to making it work in a place, making sure you have people that you trust, that you're working with.
Yeah, it's a really good question, especially kind of as we obviously have massively expanded, as we've merged with Flagship as well. How do you keep every relationship personal when you're on a much larger scale? But that's an excellent one. And we'll give the last word to you, Angela. What would be your key pick out?
Well, Staple Hill, we've got 700 properties. We've got quite a large team. We've got 15 colleagues, and probably from one end of Staple Hill to the other, geographically, is only 1 mile. So there's a heavy Bromford presence there, which customers have fed back that they really enjoy and that they feel safer and they like seeing us there. So yeah, we're very much present there, and there's a lot of us. That reassures the customers. They like seeing us. So yeah, I don't know, as you get more rural and you get that bigger area and maybe smaller teams, that might be hard to replicate that.
Yeah, it's an excellent one, and comes back to like one of the original principles of place-based working, isn't it? That every place is different, and therefore it's how do you keep that same magic within the team, even though the team may be different in each place. That's an Excellent pickouts. That's great. And that kind of brings us to the end of my questions. And I have got a couple in the chat, which I will look to direct to the panel. There's one here from Emma Pierce. I'll come to you, Angela. Have the number of complaints reduced in Staple Hill, and has customer satisfaction increased over the time in the pilot?
Yes and yes. So our open complaints have halved from what we had at the start of the pilot, and they're maintaining at that level, which is really good. And customer satisfaction, yes. So the latest report that we looked at showed 100% customer satisfaction. And when we're talking to our customers as well, they're really seeing the benefit of the place team, and they're really happy with us being there.
Have the number of compliments increased, Angela?
Yes.
That's great. I wondered if I could widen that out slightly, come to you, Leo, in terms of any other kind of significant changes in performance measures that we've seen over the pilot. I'd put you on the spot here. I'm not expecting numbers, but kind of the general gist of what's going on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Key, I'm probably going to point to Laura because she probably will know the numbers, but metrics like first time fix improved from like it was in the 40s maybe a year ago to now consistently in the 70s and even the 80s. The number, the time to first appointment has, I think, decreased by roughly 50%. But, Angela's mentioned complaints, but it's also, I think, again, not everything can be measured, but getting reports from customers that children in some of the customers' properties, know our colleagues by name now and are comfortable to have them come in the home. That's a big difference because previously, we'd had a number of colleagues across the region sort of come in to service our customers, but having that consistency there has built up. I'm not sure how you can measure that. I think that's gone up as well, but. Yeah, Laura probably knows some more better numbers than I do, but from what I've seen, a lot of our key metrics that we sort of measure have definitely all increased or decreased in positive ways.
Yeah, I think when we compare it to the sublocality as a whole as well, which is something we like to do to kind of benchmark it, we are consistently either lower days to first appointment, higher first time fix for that. We also track mileage, that's reduced massively. We've implemented a store so that we don't have to go to Travis Perkins to get materials as regularly to get a better service with that first time fix. So we've definitely consistently seen that we're giving a better service because of it. So that's really good.
That's great. Thank you all. There's a question here from Paramveer saying that pilots clearly give us a better service to those places where they are deployed, but are we at risk of inadvertently creating an inequality of service to customers outside of pilots or outside of place-based working? Do you know what? I'll give this one a stab at answering, and perhaps Leo, I'll bring you in to correct me. But in my view, I think it's a good question, and we don't want to create a two-tier service, absolutely. But it's about finding the right solution for the problem that you are, or not a problem, but the challenge that you've got. Just because you're delivering services in a different way doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be delivering different outcomes. You can still deliver a great landlord service by delivering in a place-based team or in a different model for our customers that don't fall into one of our places. So that would be my broad reflection on that. Leo, did you have anything to add?
I would say that a key thing for this pilot is doing things differently. There's not extra, there's not more. There's no more money, there's no more colleagues sort of put in there. It's just how we work as a team operationally is a bit different, and it's nothing which can't be shared, and those learnings can't be sort of scaled across the business. So all colleagues, customers can benefit from it. But what we didn't want to do was to come up with a model and then just do it as quickly as possible. We know each places, each of our areas in our geography are different. They have different challenges. They have different customer demographics. They have different access to services. So we didn't want to just have another one-size-fits-all model because Staple Hill works. We wanted to take the time to understand these places better, to shape the teams differently, to better serve the challenges there, but also be open to evolving it. If repairs go down, that opens up opportunities to do different things. So no, I don't think that having a pilot had any negative implications for customers outside of that place. If anything, it shows that there's different ways to maybe increase the level of service and do things slightly differently than that was done historically for the benefit of colleagues and for customers.
That's great. Going to have one quick final question before we close. I'm going to come to all three of you for a very short answer, if you can, please. A question from Paul Taylor. What would the panelists say is one thing that all future place teams should learn from your experience of being involved in the pilot? I'll come to you first this time, Angela.
I think for the team to remain curious, so to always keep asking why, why do we do things that way? Why can't we do it this way? Why don't we try this? So just for them to remain curious.
That's a great one. And I'll come to you next, Laura.
Yeah, so mine's kind of similar, but I was going to say stay open-minded with it. So, like Angela says, being curious with it, but not just sticking to the way it has always been and challenging that. Stay open-minded to new ideas to be able to evolve the way we work to better suit the place.
Absolutely. And to be open-minded in the first place, to trying a new way of working in the first place, isn't it? That's great. And we're finished with you, Leo.
I would say just keep collaborating. It can be easy to fall into this is my team or this is my objective, where we're all trying to deliver a good service for our customers. It's one long user journey and everyone has a part to play in it. And, by collaborating, by talking more, by being open, you can be more than the sum of your parts. It's very easy to go, we need more. Whereas if you work together, do better. So I'd say, keep collaborating and keep talking, because that's, I think, the biggest change. We keep mentioning the Teams channel because honestly, that's had the biggest benefit. Just you guys, this is your joint outcome. Work together to deliver it, and all these positive things came out of it. So keep collaborating and keep talking.
Absolutely. And in terms of keep talking, that's a lovely segue to continue the conversation up on our YouTube. Comment some further questions, engage with us. We've got a community on LinkedIn called Place-Based Working. Please do join that community, and please do look out for future webinars where we will keep exploring place-based working. So thank you so much to all the panelists for your answers today. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to catch you at another webinar very soon.